So our step 4, when we are talking about evaluating, definitely we are calculating something, isn't it? So that is why we evaluate without control measures in place. So what it means is, for an example, we have working at height. We evaluate before putting control measures. Then that is when we can now have to determine the risk factor, where we look how likely this can happen. If it happens, what will be the severity of the consequence? So we are calculating now. Likelihood versus the consequence. I think it's clear then. So we'll end up having what we call a risk matrix, which means our risk matrix will be likelihood by the consequence. So how do we measure the likelihood? We can measure with the what? With the time. To say, no, this is rare. It cannot happen. So when we say rare, it's something that happens annually. Then we can give it a value 1. Then if we say it's uncommon, it means something that happens twice a year. Then we give it a value of 2. If it is occasional, it means something happens monthly. Then we give it 3. If it is regularly, it means that is something that happens weekly. Then we give it a value of 4. If it is frequent, it's something that happens daily. Then we give it a value of 5. So we are creating what we call a 5 by 5 matrix. So the likelihood side, these are the weights. So based on period in which they occur. Then we now measure the severity, the consequence. So the consequence can be measured by whether injury or illness or damage or loss. So either the two. So if we are measuring the severity based on injuries, we look at if it is a first aid injury, then we give it a value of 1. If it is a minor injury which takes up to 3 days of sick leave, then we give it a value of 2. If it is an injury that takes more than 3 days of sick leave, we give it a value of 3. If it is an injury that is a major illness or injury, we give it a value of 4. If it is fatality, it's 5. So look at the likelihood we're having 1 to 5 value. Now at the severity, we have 1 to 5 value. Are you getting it? If we are measuring with the damage or loss, which means less than 20,000 rand, 1. If it is 20,000 to 100,000, we give a value of 2. If the loss gives us such amount. If it is a loss of 100,000 to 50 to 500,000, there are 3. If it's a loss of 500,000 to 5 million, we give it 4. If it is more than 5 million, then 5. That is, it can even lead to closure of what? Of business. Then it's 5. So if we have such values, it means now our table is now made up of 2. Likelihood by severity. Then after likelihood and severity, we now have the table now of likelihood versus what? Severity. Where they meet, they give us a number. That number is we now have to create a key. So our interpretation of scores will be in a method of a key, whereby 1, okay, thank you. 1 will be insignificant risk if we get the answer 1. If we get 2 to 4, it will be low risk. If we get 5 to 12, it will be moderate risk. If we get 15 to 25, it's high risk. So what it means, low risk, insignificant, these are acceptable. We can work with them. Moderate is caution. Proceed, but with caution. So what it means, procedures are needed. Then high risk is ready. Stop. The work must stop. No one can work under what?